Hey guys, Coach Keith Keppner here. We just saw the Canelo versus Crawford fight. And first off, I just want to say I'm so happy that there's not some crazy, ridiculous decision like there has been in fights sometimes. And the right person won, meaning from the result of the fight, the right person won. Not just that it went along with my bias of who I thought was going to win, uh, even though I thought it was a very competitive fight, which it was. Crawford had to be extremely focused the entire time. First off, I want to talk about size. This is something that even I was not sure of, but I think a lot of people that are actually physically around, whether it's commentators in boxing or whatnot, who are physically around these two men, should have said something about earlier, because in the ring, there was not a big size difference as far as weight goes. Obviously, Crawford is taller and longer. Canelo is a smaller, compact, but smaller super middleweight or light heavy. You have to remember that. So sure, you have the stuff, and it is noteworthy in terms of like definitions, right? As far as the categories that are now. But going up from 47, well, I know lightweight, but then most recently 47, then 54, and then 68. From 54 to 68, yeah, that's whatever it is, 12, 15 pounds or whatever. But it all depends on what he walks at, all of those things together. And then as well, a very good smaller guy can beat a good but not as good bigger guy. And I'm not saying Canelo is not for the history books and everything else. He's obviously very noteworthy, been very dominant in this era. And you can say it's for this reason, that reason. I like Canelo. I was big. I say was. As he was coming up and as he was lighter, and when he did certain things a certain way, I tended to be more of someone that would be like, hey, watch Canelo. But as he got bigger and as he got older and as he started fighting a certain way, I stopped saying watch Canelo so much. All right. Doesn't mean he doesn't do good things, but you saw Bivol piece apart what Canelo has flaws on now, and you saw Crawford piece it apart too. And it's just good boxing. So Terrence, going in there, boxing and moving and fighting in spots. The definition of it is what we saw tonight. Boxing and moving is not running, which a lot of other guys have done with Canelo, and Canelo has struggled with them, but you could still say that they were really kind of boxing and moving a little bit, but also a lot of running. And that's what I was worried about, was that Crawford might do that, because I'm not in his mind. Okay. But he fought in spots, like really fought in spots, and did exactly what you should do to be a boxer mover. Because when you're a boxer mover, I know from people doing that to me that you want to go after him, you want to get him, you get frustrated, like we saw Canelo do. And then that boxer mover, when they sit down for a second and rip you up, it takes you off guard, and it flusters you more, right, than someone that's just boxing and moving on you. All right. And you saw Terrence use that very effectively. That also leads me to the other point of, you guys know that follow my stuff, that I harp on a lot, is the importance of hand defense. We saw hand defense play a massive role in Terrence Crawford's game, as well as it has in other fights, like when he fought Errol Spence as well. You tend to be less out of control. And now, granted, there was feet that did it. There was some head movement that did it, but there's also a lot of great hand defense. And Canelo's standard tactic, that somewhere he got in his head, or somewhere his coach just got in his head or in their head, is this idea of, I'm going to beat arms down. And I guess it worked against that guy Smith or something, but that guy's not the same caliber as Bivol or as Crawford or as a lot of guys. So that's not going to work. And you saw a couple times Canelo aiming for arms. Not a ton, but a couple times. And those are all wasted punches. Granted, it's better to hit something than hit nothing, right? To miss. But still, you can block shots. You can build up the toughness in your arms and everything else when you're a professional fighter at that level, to block shots and do it properly. All right. And then let's talk about Canelo. Like, yes, defensively, there were a lot of good things, but a lot of things that Canelo falls into very easily exploited by a very, very high level boxer, mover, puncher like Terrence is. I say puncher because he does have a lot of knockouts, right? He actually has statistically more knockouts than Canelo. I understand he's smaller, but I'm just saying he does, all right? You saw some of the things that I have seen with my guys that watch a lot of Canelo. And again, this is where I harp on this thing of why I kind of shy away from certain guys when I start seeing their flaws get mimicked by people that I train. And then I'm like, then I stop recommend watching them at all because it's like, yo, we need to just leave that be. The big wide shots is one thing that Canelo does all the time, obviously. Him falling back, leaning back and falling back when people throw punches at him, puts him in spots where he's hittable and not able to throw. He doesn't really throw off of it. And then also, as we saw classically shown in, I think, the 11th round or whatever round it was, he gets hit by that counter left hand and he tries to ride it, but he just gets kind of hit by it. And sure, you could say it takes off most of the steam of the punch or some of the steam of the punch, but that's still a scoring punch. If you're a judge watching that, you're probably going to score that. If you're a fan watching that, you're probably going to score that. Making a punch less effective is a good survival tactic, but it's not necessarily a winning tactic. It can be part of a winning tactic. I understand boxing is an art form. So just what I like doesn't mean, or what I think is better doesn't mean is better. It can be part of a survival and winning, but typically it's more of a surviving thing of like, oh, I'm getting hit by the shot. I wasn't able to react to it, so I got to ride with it. Like, that's just, it's not ideal. And he made that really popular. Not that people didn't do that before, but he made that really popular with that big showy head whip, you know, like whip his hair back and forth, you know, like Willow Smith or something like that. And it just is not a good thing to mimic. I had to break that habit from a lot of my guys. It's one thing to slightly ride with a punch. It's another thing to whip your head like that. All right. And it got memed and everything else as being this cool thing, and it's not good for boxing, in my opinion. But I'm a purist person, and I used to be, believe it or not, a lot more purist. I guess I've gotten older, I've gotten more open minded in a lot of ways. Anyway, the mindset of Crawford going into this fight, or how he showed in the ring, is the mindset of a great fighter. He beat him here personality-wise, emotionally in the ring, but then also because he wasn't afraid of Canelo's punches. A little bit like when people weren't afraid of Mike Tyson's punches, it was a different story. Same thing with Canelo. If you can get yourself, and you can do this, to not be afraid of someone's punches, the punches do have less effect. It is an amazing thing. But if you're fearful of them, which it's easy to be, like, this is not easy stuff to do. This is super high level stuff that only, you know, the high level can do, or you at your level will get you to the next level, the better, the more you can do this. But to not respect someone's power in the sense that you fear their power, you respect it in the sense that you watch out for it, you stay aware, you stay focused, like Crawford did throughout 90+% of this fight, but you don't overly respect it. All right, it's a big thing. And then the last thing I want to say to wrap it up is that I want to say how much I appreciate Canelo obviously taking the chance. T-Bud, I guess, like, called for the fight. I didn't really follow all this super closely, but I could tell that he and his camp knew that these are the holes and the ways to beat Canelo. Canelo will kind of fall apart in pieces of fights. He'll lose focus, and that's the time that Bud got off. And then also the frustrating factor. Canelo gets frustrated that people don't want to fight his fight. That's not good enough. It's like me and Coach Bambera talked about, you know, this week. If the one thing he and I both agreed on is that if the fight's not going Canelo's way, Canelo's not going to make an adjustment. But if the fight's not going Terrence's way, Terrence can make an adjustment. That's the truth. And that's what I don't like either. All right. And that's what I'm not a big, you know, supporter of, putting Canelo up on a pedestal. Not that he's not, you know, world champion, multiple weight classes, one of the great Mexican fighters in the history of Mexico. Absolutely. All those things. But just in terms of someone that you're just going to, you know, how fanboys do, they hang their hat on, like, this is the best guy ever. Like, he's my favorite guy. I like him the most. You know, I love him. is because of these things. You know, he gets frustrated when people don't fight his fight. He gets hit. He gets more frustrated oftentimes. He loads up too much, really wide punches. Can't really fight on the inside very well. And that's where Crawford was able to fight better on the inside than he could in a lot of ways. So again, all around boxing tool set, which doesn't mean I'm saying that Canelo doesn't have a boxing tool set or a whole bunch of skills that are world class. I'm just saying Terrence has more, and he has them a little bit more refined for him. All right. Anyway, both these guys are very gracious to each other. I don't know how the buildup was. It seemed like they're pretty gracious, but at least from what I saw and from the decision tonight, which was a good decision, Canelo took the loss in stride, which you don't want to say someone's a good loser, but he was a man about it, which is what everyone needs to be. What I don't like, or what I really hate, is when these guys lose decisions that are very obviously lost fights, and they complain about it. They say they think they won, right? Everyone from, there's a bunch of names I could drop, but pick your favorite, most recent or favorite of all time, where they're convinced that they won the fight. And it's like, yeah, you didn't get completely slaughtered, but you lost the fight. And it's not even like, I understand if like in the moment you think you won the fight and then you go back, you watch it and you're like, nah, yeah, I guess I didn't. And then you recant that, that's one thing. But these guys, and it seems something that happens more nowadays, they can't admit that he was a better man than me tonight, right? That I'm a great fighter, but he's also a great fighter. And he was better than me tonight, right? And so I really appreciate Canelo doing that. That was awesome, as well as, taking the chance to lose to a smaller guy, which is what happened. And so it's a great thing for the sport of boxing. I think when people take chances, like Canelo was saying, like Crawford took a chance, but a very calculated chance. I didn't really realize how much of a calculated chance it was because I guess he asked for the fight. I heard. Who knows? I'm not in those circles. So anyway, guys, comment below. Share me your thoughts. It didn't disappoint. It was definitely more exciting than Pacquiao versus Mayweather. So that's a win-win. And it was also free. So that even makes it better. All right, guys, have a great night.